Hey everyone, Blothany Nose Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. Well, really the internet's stuffiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Charli XCX mixtape, Pop 2. Charli XCX, futuristic pop diva hailing from the UK, whose work I have warmed up to quite a bit lately, since she made the very essential shift from run-of-the-mill pop runoff to freaky electropop and left-field bubblegum bass. She dropped 2 mixtapes in this vein in 2017, the first of which was #1 Angel, and Pop 2 is the second. And once again, Charli XCX is teaming up with a lot of producers from the PC music camp, the likes of Easy Fun, Sophie, A.G. Cook. So the sound of this thing is almost guaranteed to take the shape of pop to come. And it's kind of easier than ever to make that leap given just how accessible and almost present day a lot of the material on this new tape is. It's like we're seeing the slightly experimental and not so distant future as opposed to the weird, wild, and freaky. Oh, my head hurts, I have a headache. The weird, wild, and freaky tone of pop that we might be hearing like a generation down the road. So while this tape isn't quite as out there as #1 Angel, nor is it as bordering on avant-garde as her Vroom Vroom EP was. EP of the year! EP of the friggin' year! Charli just continues on this trend of dishing out very inventive contemporary pop music with just wall-to-wall features. The only moments when the album falters, in my opinion, are twofold. One, when a featured guest kind of just causes a lull in a track because they're not that interesting, sort of like Tommy Cash on the song Delicious, just not really seeing the appeal of his performance here. The vocals are kind of generic, and the sudden stop and transition into something entirely different in the midst of this feature leads me to believe that maybe there wasn't really that much to it. And while we're on the topic of underwhelming features, Jay Park is maybe one of the most generic pop rap performances that I've heard this year. And #2, I guess there are some moments on here where I feel like the production falters a little bit as well. Like on the song Backseat featuring Carly Rae Jepsen. I do love Carly's performance on this track. Her and Charli match each other very well, and it was really appropriate putting her on this song because there is a bit of a slow-mo, glistening, glamorous 80s aesthetic to it. However, the very molasses-like pacing of the track and the roaring bass and the kind of very jagged synthesizers that close the track out are really noisy, unnecessarily messy, just feel kind of like cluttered. Not really the payoff I would have wanted given how slow and how patient much of the track is. The song Tears is similarly cluttered to my ears as much as I do love the inclusion of what sounds like these very odd, squeaky screams throughout the track that were really unexpected but exhilarating all the same. While the song Out of My Head does kind of sound like a very standard dance or electropop track, definitely one of the more commercial cuts that I've heard Charli put out in a while, not really anything too experimental about it. The hook is just too sticky to deny. Also, some of the very lewd and somewhat gritty and self-effacing lyrics that Charli brings to the table definitely bring a tone different than that of your average pop song. And even Tove Lo, one of the most average performers and singers in contemporary pop, couldn't even ruin this track. Now, there are some bangers in the track list here that I love quite a bit, and they take things down to slightly weirder territory, like I Got It, featuring Brooke Candy, and Cupcake. I love the quiet aggression of this track. I like the really odd, sputtering, very spastic groove. I love how Brooke Candy's feature is so much quieter and has this very subtle tension to it. Meanwhile, when Cupcake is introduced on the track, the volume just pumps up. So much attitude, and this track just kind of takes me back to the hardest and the craziest and the most off-the-wall moments of the Vroom Vroom EP. And the song FEMMEBOT is one of many moments on here, but maybe the most prominent one where Charli seems to fuse this idea of the digital world and the romance world, being human, but also kind of being a digital representation of yourself or like a cybernetic being, talking about this infatuation or love that she has for this other person, making her short circuit. Again, one of many cuts lately where you have singers, pop singers, addressing love in the internet and the information age and the technology age, and this, just throw it on the pile of the many songs in this vein that I enjoy. But really, for me, the selling point of this track is the punchy beats, the very nimble enjoyable and kind of jumpy and manipulated vocal lines from Charli XCX, and the fantastic Mickey Blanco feature, which is absolutely gnarly. There are cuts that take a slower, more ballad-like tone, like Lucky or the first leg of the song, track 10, both of which wow me, both of which are incredibly sensual, especially Lucky's lead vocal as it ascends into these like distorted, kind of weird, manipulated falsettos. Another moment on this record where I feel like Charli is almost kind of morphing into a moment where she's part human, also part computer. Like she's just a digital embodiment of a woman who is just crying out into the night. Overall, this is a very enjoyable mixtape for me. At the end of the day, there were some tracks that I don't think quite hit the mark, but I'm still enjoying hearing Charli work with the PC Music Camp. I'm still enjoying what she's doing with her sound on these records. But I can't help but feel like we haven't quite heard Charli XCX with this sound fully realized yet. Like we have something bigger and better and more ambitious and more gargantuan coming down the pipe. So while I am crossing my fingers for that, I am still enjoying Pop 2 as is. I'm feeling a light to decent 7 on this thing. Hi. Transition. So I hope you heard this tape. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought of it down in the comments. Over here next to my head is another Charli XCX review that you can check out. And that's it, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Anthony Fantano, Charli XCX forever.